They told us mercy had no place in war. Mercy would get you killed. But one night, I broke that rule. In the mud and blood of a battlefield, I found myself looking down at a dying enemy soldier. And instead of finishing him, I saved him. That choice has haunted me ever since. I was barely 20 when I left home. A farm boy who had never traveled farther than the next town over, suddenly carrying a rifle and wearing a uniform that felt too heavy for my shoulders. The newspapers called us heroes before we even left. The recruiters told us we'd be fighting for freedom, for justice, for the future of the world. They promised it would be glorious. Marches, flags, victory parades. But when you step off that ship into a country torn apart, when the first artillery round shakes the ground beneath your boots, you realize how quickly all those promises die. From the first day of training, they drilled into us the same lesson. The enemy is not human. They are shadows, threats, things to eliminate before they eliminate you. Hesitation could get you killed. Mercy was weakness. I swallowed that lesson whole. I had to. If I let myself think about the men on the other side as fathers, brothers, sons, I wouldn't have been able to pull the trigger. And then came that winter of 1944. The snow was thick, covering the broken land like a shroud. Trees stood like skeletons against the gray sky, and the air froze inside your lungs with every breath. We had been pushed to the edge of exhaustion. Long marches, frozen rations, sleepless nights in foxholes. That night, the sky ripped open with artillery. The ground shook like it was alive, spitting dirt and fire. We huddled into the earth, ears ringing, praying the shells would miss our hole. When the bombardment finally stopped, there was no silence, just the cries of the wounded, the groans of the dying, the scattered crack of rifles as the battle dragged itself into dawn. I was ordered to check the field, to move through the wreckage and make sure no enemy stragglers were left breathing. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the wind. A faint sound carried over the frozen ground. But as I drew closer, I knew it wasn't the wind. It was a voice, broken, fragile, the sound of someone drowning in pain. I stepped over bodies, ours and theirs, until I found him, a German soldier. He was young, maybe a year or two older than me. His uniform was shredded, soaked in blood. His body twisted unnaturally where the shrapnel had torn through him. His breath came in short, ragged gasps, mist curling into the frozen air. My hands moved before my mind did. I lifted my rifle, finger resting on the trigger. One shot, that was what I was trained to do. That was what was expected of me. But then he opened his eyes, and for the first time in this war, I didn't see the enemy. I saw a boy. His eyes weren't filled with hate. They were filled with fear, pure human fear. The same fear I had felt 100 times before when shells screamed overhead, or when I thought my next step might be my last. He whispered something in German. I didn't understand the words, but I didn't need to. His expression said it all. Please don't let me die alone. My chest tightened. I remembered my mother's face, the way she kissed me goodbye at the station. I thought of my younger brother, who used to run across the fields with me back home. I thought of the letters tucked in my pack, the ones I still hadn't answered. And then I looked back at this boy, this enemy, and I realized someone was waiting for him too. Maybe a mother, a sister, a girl back home writing letters he would never get to read. My rifle felt heavier than it ever had before. I should have ended it quickly. That's what they would have wanted. That's what the training demanded. But I couldn't. Instead, I lowered my weapon. I ripped a strip from my sleeve and pressed it against his wound. I poured water from my canteen into his trembling hands. He coughed, choked, then held onto my wrist. His grip wasn't strong. It was weak, shaking, barely there. But in that touch, I didn't feel the hand of an enemy. I felt the hand of a boy clinging desperately to life. The world around us blurred. For a few minutes, the war was gone. The shells, the rifles, the flags, the orders, all of it disappeared. It was just us. Two boys trapped in a nightmare we hadn't chosen. Every second I knelt there, fear gnawed at me. What if another soldier came around the corner and saw me? Would they shoot me for treason? Call me a coward? Would they ever trust me again? But no one came. It was only later, when a medic stumbled onto the scene, that the spell broke. He froze, staring at me as if I'd gone mad. Together, in silence, we carried the German back to the field hospital, and that was it. I never learned his name. I never saw his face again. I don't know if he lived or died that night, but his eyes, they have never left me. For years, I told myself I had done the right thing, that mercy, even in war, was a kind of victory, that in a world drowning in violence, I had held on to a piece of humanity, but the questions never stopped. What if he lived and picked up his rifle again? What if he went back to his unit and days later killed one of my friends? What if by saving him I condemned someone else? That thought tore at me for decades. I kept it hidden. I never told the others, not even the men I trusted most. Because what would they think? Would they spit at my feet, call me a traitor? Or would they admit that maybe they had felt the same conflict once or twice, but buried it before it consumed them? You see, wars aren't remembered for mercy. Wars are remembered for victories, for body counts, for medals. But here I am, old and grey, with shelves of medals I can't even remember earning. And the only thing that feels real anymore is the face of the boy I spared. They told us mercy had no place in war. And maybe they were right. Maybe mercy doesn't win battles. But that night, in that frozen field, mercy was all I had left. I don't know if I saved a life or only delayed a death. I don't know if my choice cost someone else theirs, but I do know this: medals fade, flags turn to dust, victories are forgotten, the faces you kill blur with time, but the faces you spare, those stay with you forever.